The American dream of owning a home, yeah, it was just hijacked by a war in the Persian Gulf. And your exit strategy is going to cost you six figures. We were watching a perfect storm unfold literally in real time. Most people are just sitting around, right? They're waiting for a dip in mortgage rates so they can finally buy their first house or move to a better one. They think the window is just temporarily closed. Well, it's not. That window just slammed shut. What we're looking at right now isn't just another boring story about high interest rates. It is a fundamental glitch in the housing matrix, and it's being driven by foreign conflict, institutional panic, and a completely broken tax structure.
Okay, so let's actually unpack this glitch, because it is wild. Right now, the median price for a brand new home is $387,000. But the median price for an existing home, the used one right across the street, is nearly $409,000. Think about that for a second. It is suddenly $21,000 cheaper to buy a pristine, brand new house than the 30-year-old property next door with a leaky roof and some outdated kitchen from the 90s. This is absolutely crazy. Historically, new construction always carried a premium, right? You paid more for the privilege of being the first person to live there. Well, that entire economic reality has completely inverted.
The math on home buying has just flipped upside down. For generations, the playbook was simple. It was predictable. You save up a modest down payment, you buy a small starter home, you live in it for 5 to 7 years, let it build equity, sell it, and then use that profit to move up to your forever home. That was the dream. But that traditional path, it's dying in real time. You literally cannot move up when the starting line itself has been barricaded. And to understand why this is happening right now, in the spring of 2026, we have to look way beyond your local real estate market.
We have to map the domino effect. It starts with a military clash. Iranian speedboats and U.S. forces in the Strait of Hormuz. That single geopolitical choke point handles a fifth of the world's oil. Instantly, oil prices surge past $110 a barrel. And that spike in energy costs guarantees that inflation stays sticky. It simply doesn't drop. When inflation refuses to cool down, bond investors panic. They dump their safe assets, which forces yields higher. And because mortgage rates are tied directly to those yields, the cost to borrow money for a house rockets up to 6.37%. So a military standoff on the exact opposite side of the planet is now directly dictating what you pay for a 3-bedroom house in Ohio.
And this exposes what is essentially a global shadow tax. When oil hits $110, it is not just pain at the gas pump. Honestly, that's a really naive way to look at it. Elevated oil acts as a shadow tax on the entire global supply chain. Everything requires oil. The fertilizer needed to grow our food, it relies on energy markets. The diesel fuel required to transport lumber and drywall to construction sites shoots up. Core inflation becomes impossible to shake because the foundational cost of moving literally anything from point A to point B has skyrocketed. You are basically paying for a foreign war every single time you buy groceries and every time you apply for a mortgage.
So here is exactly what happens next. The 30-year mortgage rate is essentially the 10-year Treasury yield plus a risk spread for mortgage-backed securities. When bond investors saw this energy-driven shadow tax hitting the economy, they panicked. The 10-year Treasury yield surged to 4.37%. Think of that yield as gravity. When it pulls up, mortgage borrowing costs have absolutely no choice but to go right up with it. The Federal Reserve could talk all day long about wanting to cut rates, but the bond market is the actual gravity of the financial system. And the bond market said no.
But, okay, there's a hidden tension behind all this, right inside the most powerful financial institution on Earth. Right at the brink of this energy crisis, the Federal Reserve met to decide on interest rates. And the result? An 8-4 vote split. That is the most divided meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee since October 1992. 4 regional presidents dissented. They sent this massive hawkish signal to the market that they are terrified of this sticky inflation and they want to keep the pressure on. We are watching a profound institutional fracture happen exactly when the economy needs a steady hand. Which leaves us with a genuinely concerning reality. We essentially have a two-headed Fed. You have outgoing chair Jerome Powell trying to manage a delicate transition, and incoming chair Kevin Warsh, a known monetary hawk who heavily favors a brutal, disciplined approach to fighting inflation. They're splitting influence at the absolute worst possible time. When you look at this dynamic, it really feels like nobody is actually driving the economic bus. The market doesn't know who to believe or which philosophy will dictate the next 5 years of American economic policy. And this uncertainty alone is keeping your borrowing costs artificially high.
But wait, there is a totally hidden side to this survival math. The most overlooked angle in all of this. Everyone in the media talks about the rate lock-in effect, right? People who bought homes at 3% aren't selling because they don't want to buy a new house at 6.37%. That is true, for sure, but it completely misses the actual venom in the system. The real freeze is being caused by the exit tax. This is the overlooked reality that makes selling your current home the single most expensive mistake you will ever make.
Take a city like San Diego right now. The average exit tax for a homeowner is $167,527. Think about that number. If a family has lived in their home for years and built up substantial equity, the capital gains tax they get hit with upon selling is just astronomical. The government has accidentally locked the middle class into a genuine property prison. Even if you want to sell, even if you need to move for a new job or you have a growing family, the federal and state governments are standing at the door demanding a six-figure toll just to hand the keys to someone else.
The math here is it's absolutely absurd. Compare the cost of selling, that $167,000 exit tax, against the cost of just holding the property empty. The annual holding costs in that same market are about $11,535. It is literally cheaper for a family to leave a house sitting completely vacant for 5 years than it is to sell it to a new family who desperately needs a home. Think about the massive economic destruction of that fact. Perfectly good homes are being withheld from the market because our tax structure actively punishes people for creating housing supply. So who actually benefits from this freeze? Who wins? The massive national homebuilders. They're winning, and they are winning big. Because everyday homeowners cannot afford to sell, the supply of existing homes is bone dry. And the homebuilders? They're stepping right into that void. They are using their massive corporate cash reserves to artificially buy down mortgage rates for their buyers, sometimes dropping them all the way down to 5%. They are aggressively cutting base prices to 5-year lows just to keep their inventory moving. This makes new builds the ultimate strategic hedge. If you're buying a home today, a corporate builder is essentially the only entity that can afford to subsidize your survival. They are the only ones who can make a 6.37% world affordable. Let's just slow down for a second, because the socioeconomic impact of this is staggering. Nearly 4 million American families have been forced to fundamentally change how they live just to survive this mess. We are seeing a massive surge in the multi-generational defense mechanism. We're moving away from the highly individualist American dream where, everyone gets their own detached house with a white picket fence, and we are moving right back to communal living. Not by choice, but out of sheer financial necessity.
And the numbers back this up in a massive way. Homes that can support multiple generations, properties with granny flats, accessory dwelling units, or in-law suites, they now command a massive 65% price premium. They attract 13.5% more views online than standard listings. You typically have 5 people sharing a 4-bedroom layout, pulling together a median household income of $131,000 just to outrun the high interest rates in that shadow tax of inflation. I predict that these multi-generational listings will become the most fiercely valuable and aggressively fought-over properties in America over the next 5 years.
So we are left with a broken system, a totally locked-up market, and millions of families pooling paychecks just to survive. All of this forces us to ask the only question that actually matters if we want to break this housing freeze. Is it time to completely end the capital gains tax on primary residences to stop this exit tax from destroying our housing supply? Or, in an economy already stretched to the breaking point, is doing that just a massive, unjustifiable handout to the wealthy?
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.